Are we going to stop buying retro video games because consoles like this exist?
The answer might surprise you.
There are hundreds of video game emulation devices out there, but today we're going to focus on these two. This is the Analog Pocket, and this is the Anbernic RG35XX. So for full disclosure, we did receive this for free in trade for our review from Mechdiy.com, but the opinions within this video are our own and honest opinions.
Thank you, Mechdiy, for allowing us to give this a review.
We're not going to go into the specs of this device because we just don't know, and it's not worth our time. Now we know what you're saying. Why don't we just mod one of our Vitas or 3DSs or Switches? Because, you know, we already have those consoles.
Because bricking your console and getting your online account banned is a real thing.
That might be easy enough to do for some people, but we just don't have the time. We'd rather spend that time just playing our video games. So let's break it down by face value first. So this console's pretty nice. You know, it has a good feel to it. There's nice contour design. It looks clean. It looks modern. There's not excess buttons. It does have USB-C, which is nice. Buttons feel good. Love the clear color in particular. It's a good solid goes with anything color. Clear is my favorite color. Headphone jack, which we love. Rechargeable battery. Mini HDMI out. We have a power LED, volume buttons, power button, reset button. There's where the SD card goes. One single speaker. Menu, and then the standard setup otherwise. The buttons feel great, real nice and clicky. It really makes you realize how much margin big companies are getting off of these. If they can charge $60 for this entire console and get the buttons feeling this good, why are we paying $70 for a Pro controller for the Switch?
For my hands, they're pretty comfortable, but by size comparison, you know, my hand's only about 6 inches.
Battery life's pretty good, 4-5 hours. It's about average. The interface, the user interface, and the menus are fine.
They're straightforward. They're not complicated or confusing. Clearly laid out. It's
really easy to sideload ROMs into it. You just remove the SD card, plug it in a computer, drop them in the directory they belong in, and go. Surprisingly easy.
The screen is just absolutely beautiful. I remember playing this on a regular GBA, and it's just so different. Such a different experience.
The most surprising thing about this console is that it comes preloaded with games like Final Fantasy VII, and then like a ton of Pokemon games, like all the Game Boy Advance ones, and then original first-party Nintendo games. I don't know how they get away with that.
I don't see it. It's not illegal.
Let's talk for a moment about the similar console, the Analog Pocket. So to be clear, this thing plays beautifully, honestly. It's built fantastically. The games play perfectly. It plays all the Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color games we've ever wanted. But it's also really easy to sideload ROMs onto it. Super Nintendo, they all work phenomenally. And then the graphic options, the brightness options, the controls, it's really, really well built. Obviously, the main reason we bought this is because it plays our physical games. So if that's what you want to do, you need to get this console. It's also very expensive. This thing's going to cost you about $220 if you're able to get it retail, but you're going to have to wait like a year. Maybe more, honestly. Availability's been kind of rough. If you want to buy it on the secondhand market, you're looking at over $400 or $500 easy, especially in brand new condition. So it's really a test of patience and your wallet.
We do play this constantly. We love our portable systems. We're able to play it anywhere in the house, but we primarily play these at home.
Phoenix doesn't have a subway network. We're too small. But I can see other places around the world and in the US like New York and Tokyo that do a lot of commuting that need handheld consoles for travel. The Analog Pocket's a little too nice. It's not worth breaking or getting stolen than waiting another year for one. Now this costs like $60, so I really don't feel bad tossing it in my pocket and traveling with it. If it gets a little damaged, it's okay because it's replaceable.
Now it'd be sad if we broke this, but at least it's affordable enough to replace.
So it plays all of the major retro consoles up to PS1, but that's where the problems begin. So first of all, there's no analog stick, so if you want to play a fighting game, you have to be able to do it with a D-pad, and while the D-pad's fine, it's just not the same. And for someone like me who's really, really bad at fighting games, this poses an extra difficult challenge. The placement of the L2 and the R2 buttons is just bad. They've basically put it so that you can't really use them with two different fingers, you can't. It's almost impossible. I mean, you can try to go like this maybe, and then have this weird kind of crab grip on it, but it just doesn't work. So in order to use R2 and L2, you need to almost accidentally depress R1 and L1 at the same time. So games like Twisted Metal 4, where this is shoot, your R2 is shoot, and this is like your alternate weapon, and these are your cycle weapons, all you're doing is constantly accidentally cycling through weapons, and it's really annoying and really hard, so games like that are basically irrelevant. PlayStation 1 games are a bit laggy. We loaded up one of the best Final Fantasies ever made, which is Final Fantasy VIII, and it's very audio delayed, very function delayed. The buttons, once you press them, it takes a couple seconds for it to do anything. It's not game breaking, but it's pretty annoying, to be honest.
Why would anyone want to play that game on the go?
Now, side by side, there is a clear difference. This is a little blown up, so it's always going to distort it a little bit, but based on the color, brightness, vividness, they're pretty comparable.
Yeah, they both look amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive that you can get something in this quality for this price when this is on the market as well. But this is playing the actual game. This one is playing an emulation.
This is a really nice build quality. However, this one's luxury premium. So this would be your like Camry, and this would be your Lamborghini. So what the heck is our use for this?
Honestly, anything pre-PS1 plays great, especially if it only requires one shoulder button for each side. Everything can play NES and Game Boy games. I mean, I feel like an expert with a calculator could get Super Mario Bros. On it. If you plan on playing PlayStation 1 games on this console, I can recommend sticking to turn-based RPGs, at least that way. The sound and button delay is manageable.
So why are we even talking about this when we have over 3,000 games in our collection?
Well, first of all, it's challenging to carry this many games with you on a road trip.
So the question is, again, what will we use this for?
2 words. Fan translations. We've completely missed out on the fan translation scene. There are hundreds of games that weren't released in the US, specifically RPGs, that we really want to play, but we can't because we hate playing on PCs. So we both work in front of computers all day long, so the last thing we want to do when we get home is jump back on a computer.
I mean, it's almost as bad as getting a phone call. I mean, who talks on the phone anymore? Hey, Mort.
Elisa! Yeah, it's Mort! I'm at a game! It's amazing! It's so loud though! I'll text you! Bye!
So what other options are there? Well, we have a Retron 5, and it works, you know, it does its thing. We're able to play our physical copies of games and then patch them with an SD card in the back, and all you do is you load up your language patch on the SD card in the back, and it'll translate them for you. But those are inferior to the fully fan-created, modified emulators, so it's just not the same. Retro video games can be pricey, and if we don't understand what we're playing, they'll likely just end up on a shelf looking good instead of getting played, and that's not how we collect video games. Honestly, this console's a lot of fun. I've put a lot of time into Mother 3 already on it, and it plays very well, and spoiler alert, the game is great. But if you don't mind waiting a very long time and putting up the money, the Analog Pocket's still a great deal. Will we stop buying retro video games and then just start emulating them instead?
I think it depends. Like, if we need an English patch to be able to play and understand the game, like an RPG, then yeah, this is a great option for us.
Because Nintendo's never going to bring Mother 3 to the US, although I'd love to be proved wrong.
But on the other hand, if we really like the artwork to display on the shelf as well, and we're big fans of the title, we'd probably pick up a copy of it.
And we have many times. There are still hundreds of games that weren't released in the US that are English friendly, and we're going to continue to play those and buy those, and they're fantastic. So we probably don't need to emulate those.
Yeah, something like Shmups or Proteus.
Tetris Battle Network's one of my favorites, so those are all great options still.
Yeah. Now the question is, should you buy this?
I would say 100% yes. If you want to play something pre-PS1 and you don't want to break the bank and you're not into modding or emulating, but if you're really, really good at modding and emulating and you're into the homebrew scene and that's like your forte, we can't relate because that's not us. But for you, good for you. But if you're patient and you have the money for it, this is a better option. It will take a little bit more work to get the emulator and ROMs on there, but it's a fantastic console.
If you have a large physical collection that you want to play on a newer device, you know, with the bright screen and all the form factor of what you remember in the retro field, this is amazing.
Yeah. Or if you're just a super nerd like we are and you love the original FPGA, like true to form pixels and graphics, then this is also the best way to go. Do you play emulated games? Are you familiar with the Anbernic software and hardware setups? Do you have an analog pocket and you just prefer that? Comment below, we'd love to hear about it. Until then, remember, the couple that plays emulated and non-emulated games together stays together. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Bye. Are you Cyclops?
Yeah.
You would pick Cyclops.
What's wrong with Cyclops?
He's such a nerd.
I am a nerd.
Who talks on the phone anymore?
You gotta answer it. You almost had it.
I forgot how to answer the phone.